So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. So, today I'll presenting my RCS for my research study. First thing first, I would like to introduce or propose my title for my study, which the determinants of the academic performance gap and practical competency challenges faced by students with disabilities OKU in Malaysian Tibet institution in Johor. So the first issue that I have identified from this study is the academic gap of the students with disabilities (OKU) in Tibet. And some of the elements that I will focus on is the first one is the invisibility of hidden disabilities, which some of students have like this autism, ADHD, and learning disorders to be deemed as a disabilities students in Tibet. The second one is the systemic underrepresentation, which means some of the students, some of the students with different type of disabilities, like complex intellectual and neurological disabilities, require a specialized instructional and teaching technique. The third one is the environmental performance gap, which means that the infrastructure or the tools that these OKU students uh, need to use is not accessible or not suitable for them. The fourth one is the instructional readiness gap, which means that some of the instructor in the Tibet institution may not be compatible or not ready yet to teach these different abilities students because they lack of um, skills. So the fifth one is the leadership and support system deficiencies, which mean that most of these Tibet college that did not have concrete support or abundance of support from the higher education or um those who wanted uh, the student with different abilities to survive longer than they should. And the proof that I've gotten, the first one is the these students, these graduates in Tibet with different abilities shows a low working ability and pedagogical speed during their learning process, and some also drop from the study, and the rate is about 11% in 2024 alone. And I also identified there are persistent infrastructure barriers and limited um, instructor preparedness, and also there are digital and cognitive barriers among the students and the instructor, and also um, the pace or the speed of the instructor teaching to the these different ability students. And the causes that I've got from this study, the first one is the academic gap and lack of inclusivity, uh, which lead to the epistemological social exclusion, and also a withdrawal behavior and motivation decay among the student and also the educators. And also causes that I've identified throughout my study is the skill stagnation and a long-term economic dependency on social welfare system. And next, we move on to the factors. The first factor that I've identified during the study, which are the lecturer competency, which means that instructor lacks specialized training to handle complex technical subject for these different ability students, and they also lack inclusive pedagogical skill to teach these different ability students. And they also this educator also lack of staff of preparedness, sense of preparedness, and When all this happen, at the end of the day they will feel less motivated to teach the students. The second factor is the inaccessible infrastructure, which some of this infrastructure in the college or in this institution may lack you know a accessible or a high technology or a very comfortable um, tools or technology for them to use. And they yeah, when this happens, the students might not be able to do their practical activities very well, and they might left behind. So the third factors is the digital divide. And these OKU trainees or students might not given enough technological exposure, and they also might let they could this happen this you know exposure, not enough exposure, could resulted in a lack of adaptive software, because these students adapted too much in old school manual skills instead of high tech technology exposure. Okay, the next is the problems. The first problem that I've identified is the teacher readiness. The first teacher readiness about the teacher readiness is the this uh, the instructor. We actually don't have enough instructor that very specialized in TVET to TVET, which specialize in teaching these different ability students. So when this happen, you know uh, the students feel like the teacher is not ready yet to teach them, and this could resulted in lack of motivation and all. The second problem that I've identified is the curriculum mismatch. There is a significant disconnect between the curriculum content and actual industry expectation, which means that somehow when these students are graduated, and they will need to work in the industry, right? But then the uh, key player in the industry, they have they deny the students, because some of the students did not equip well with the need of industry uh, to work with them within the industry. The third problem that I've identified is the lack of support system. When we talk about support system, most of the time it's about financial uh, support. Like what I've mentioned before on the inaccessible infrastructure and all. When the institution lack of financial support, this all this thing about the infrastructure, tools, technology, teacher training, and all that will not be able to be achieved because the lack of financial resources. um, okay, next one we have the objective of the study. The first one is to assess the level of lecture competency and instructional readiness in implementing inclusive pedagogy for OKU students in Tibet institution in Johor. Second one is to evaluate the challenges posed by workshop infrastructure and equipment accessibility on the practical skill competency and physical safety of OKU students. The third one is to investigate the impact of the digital divide, lack of adaptive software, and modern technological exposure on the technical knowledge acquisition of OKU students. The fourth one is to identify the adequacy and effectiveness of institutional support system, such as specialized counseling, financial aid for PPE, or interagency collaboration provided to equip OKU students. The question for the study is what is the current level of the lecture competency and pedagogical readiness regarding inclusive vocational training for a key student in Tibet institution in Johor. And second one is the how do inaccessible workshop infrastructures and non-adjustable equipment affect the practical skill acquisition and perform gap of OKU students. The third one is to what extent does the digital divide and inadequate digital literacy affect the academic and theoretical knowledge performance of OKU students in Tibet? The fourth one is what support systems are currently available and how do their deficiencies contribute to the academic performance gap and dropout risk among OK students in Johor Tibet institutions. Next, we're moving on the research content structure for the study. So, based on this framework, the title on the academic gap, the issue of the academic gap of students with disabilities occur in Tibet. The factors for this issue is the lecture competency, inaccessible infrastructure, and digital divide, and the problems causes caused by the factors is the teacher readiness, curriculum mismatch, and lack of support system. The evidence that could be gathered, the first one is the empirical evidence indicates that severe academic gap persists of AK students in Tibet due to rapid instruction speeds and high dropout rates in 2024. The consequences from the academic gap for the student with different abilities in Tibet is it leads to deep social exclusion, negative labeling, and emotional abuse for especially for these OKU students. And so the outcome that might be uh, at the end of the study is to identifying the level of knowledge, practical skills, digital divide, and support system among OK students in Tibet. Okay, next we're moving on to the conceptual framework. So for this conceptual framework, the first rule, which the teacher readiness, the curriculum mismatch, and the lack of support, indicate the problems happen within this uh, issue in the gap of gap of curriculum for the student with different abilities in Tibet, and it focuses on our OKU students, and it focuses on the Tibet institution within in Johor only, and the outcome is level on how to to identify the level of technical education outcomes and institutional support systems. So next, we're moving on to the operational framework for the study. So based on the operational framework, phase one, um, I will formulating identify variables which the teacher readiness, the curriculum mismatch, and the lack of support system. And after that, we're moving on to the phase two, which is the instrument development, with with by a validity process and pilot test using the fast content validity and item diagnosis. Uh, the third uh, the third phase is the actual data observation, which respondent taken is students or lecturer, students OKU and lecturer in Johor Tibet institution only. And the survey method that I will use is the questionnaire method. Moving on to the phase four, which the actual data analysis within the problems of the teacher readiness, curriculum mismatch, and the lack of support system. I will use the descriptive analysis of a mean score and differential analysis of correlation tests and multi-group parametric tests, and it will come out as an outcome to evaluate the levels of technical education outcomes and institutional support system for OK students in Tibet institution in Johor. That's all for me. Thank you.